The night fell heavy over Thalen Ridge, the kind of darkness that swallowed even the sound of wind. Marcus Hale stood outside his cabin, rifle slung across his shoulder, staring at the stars with the quiet tension of a man who still expected orders to come from the sky. The war had ended years ago, yet he never learned how to stop listening. His cybernetic arm clicked softly as he adjusted the old telescope beside him. Static flickered across the display embedded in his wrist, his sensors registering a magnetic disturbance far above the planet's upper atmosphere. Then came the light. A flare brighter than dawn tore through the night, streaking from the heavens like molten glass. The ground trembled under his boots as it vanished beyond the ridge in a storm of fire and thunder. The sensors in his arms screamed with interference before shorting out completely. Marcus didn't hesitate. Instinct overruled the years of silence. He grabbed his gear, a plasma cutter, med pack, and a pulse beacon, and began the climb. The forest was alive with the aftermath. Ash fell like snow, and the air hummed with the metallic tang of ozone. He followed the scorched path through the trees until the scent of something different reached him, something alive, and burning from within. The wreck lay ahead, its twisted frame half submerged in a crater that still glowed red. It wasn't a ship made by human hands. The hull pulsed faintly, organic in texture, its metallic surface resembling the skin of some enormous beast. Veins of light ran through it, fading in erratic pulses. As he stepped closer, he heard it, a sound between a roar and a cry. It was deep, layered, carrying an emotion that felt too intelligent to belong to an animal. Through the smoke, he saw movement. Something vast shifted beneath the wreckage, and an eye the size of his head snapped open, burning with gold and sorrow. He froze. The creature was a dragon, massive, wing torn, blood like liquid amber pooling beneath her. But there was something impossible in her presence. His translator implant, dormant for years, activated on its own. A voice, trembling yet clear, entered his mind. "Human, help me." He should have run. Every survival instinct screamed at him to back away, to signal the colony and wait for rescue. Yet the plea pierced deeper than reason. The old soldier in him responded before the man could think. He threw his rifle aside and ran forward, climbing the slick, alien metal until his hands touched the beast's scales. They were hot, pulsing faintly under his fingers. He saw the truth then, her sides heaving, her body convulsing with waves of pain. Beneath the wreckage, something moved inside her, a heartbeat, rapid and bright, struggling to be born. Marcus didn't understand how he knew, but he did. The dragon wasn't dying. She was in labor. And if he didn't act soon, both she and her offspring would perish. For the first time in years, Marcus felt purpose flood through him again. "Hold on," he said, voice rough. "I'm not leaving you." The dragon's golden eye dimmed briefly in what might have been gratitude. Around them, the wreck pulsed once more, as though alive and listening. Then the forest fell silent, except for the sound of a soldier's heartbeat, steady, human, and another, far deeper, echoing from within the fire. The heat around the wreckage was unbearable, yet Marcus didn't stop. He tore away the jagged plates of living metal, his synthetic arm hissing as servos overheated. Every fragment he removed pulsed faintly before disintegrating into dust, as though the ship itself were dying. Beneath the shifting layers, the dragon writhed in agony. Her breathing came in bursts of molten light, her scales flickering between silver and crimson. Marcus's combat implants, once tuned to detect motion, sound, and threat, now registered something else entirely, waves of bioelectrical energy pulsing in rhythm with her heart. He found an opening between two cracked ribs of organic alloy and crawled inside the hollow of her ship body, following the sound of the heartbeat. The interior walls shimmered with translucent membranes that flexed like lungs, glowing with data streams written in alien symbols. It wasn't merely a ship, it was her body's extension, alive and intertwined with her nervous system. He'd seen hybrid warships before, human biotechs born of desperation near the war's end. But nothing this advanced. "Tell me what to do," Marcus said aloud, unsure whether the translator implant could handle this. Her voice came as thought, weak but resonant. The young are trapped. The birth conduit collapsed. You must free them before the energy core breaches. He didn't question how he understood her anatomy or what a conduit was. He simply moved. Using his plasma cutter, he sliced through fibrous cables that seemed to pulse like veins. A burst of golden fluid sprayed across his face, glowing faintly before fading into steam. The air inside was heavy with static, each breath vibrating through his chest. When he reached the core, he saw them, two small shapes encased in translucent cocoons, pulsing faintly with light. They weren't eggs. They were alive. He pressed his palm against one. The moment he touched it, an electric pulse surged through him, strong enough to drop him to his knees. For an instant, his vision fractured. He saw stars bending, vast shapes drifting in cosmic seas, and a rhythm that wasn't his own heartbeat. It was ancient, steady, eternal. The cocoons flickered in response, as if recognizing him. They know you. The dragon's voice trembled in his mind. You are within the heartstream now. Marcus shook his head, trying to stay focused. The hull shuddered around them as explosions echoed from deeper within the wreck. He slashed through the remaining restraints, freeing the cocoons. The light within them flared brighter, pulsing with his own heartbeat. He dragged them out, one under each arm, as the corridor behind him collapsed into burning plasma. Outside, the dragon's body convulsed violently. He barely set the cocoons down before she let out a low, echoing roar that shook the ground. The cocoons burst open in twin flashes of light. Two small dragons emerged, translucent wings trembling, eyes glowing with newborn confusion. The mother raised her head weakly and touched them with her snout. Then her gaze turned to Marcus. The heartstream is shared, she whispered. Your pulse is theirs now. Protect them, for through you, they will live, A shockwave of light erupted from her chest, washing over the clearing. When Marcus opened his eyes again, the mother dragon was still, her body cooling into silence. The hatchlings pressed close to her side, then turned their glowing eyes to him. His wrist display flickered back to life. His heart rate, 200 beats per minute, wasn't just his. 3 signals flashed in perfect sync. The dawn came slowly, creeping through the burned treetops and settling over the crater like a veil. Marcus sat beside the still body of the dragon, her scales cooling from molten gold to dull silver. The 2 hatchlings pressed against her, trembling softly. When he reached out, they turned toward him, their eyes gleaming with mirrored reflections of his own. He didn't know what to call them. Creatures, children, or something else entirely, but they looked at him as if they already knew him. His wrist implant continued to pulse with that strange triple rhythm. It wasn't a malfunction. His biological readings matched the dragon's perfectly. 3 hearts beating as one. He ran diagnostics, trying to force logic onto the impossible. No human technology could sync life signs across species. And yet, when one of the hatchlings let out a soft cry, his pulse quickened as though it were his own pain. He buried Seraphine beneath the ruins of her ship, though even calling it a burial felt wrong. The hull dissolved into the soil, breaking down into glittering particles that the wind carried into the trees. The ground hummed faintly afterward, as if remembering her presence. The hatchlings circled the mound once, then looked back at Marcus. He could feel their emotions, grief, confusion, something like trust, pressing gently into his thoughts. Days passed. He built a shelter for them using the remains of the wreckage, improvising a field generator to regulate temperature. The hatchlings grew fast, too fast. Their scales hardened to a crystalline shimmer, and when they slept, faint holographic projections drifted above their bodies, constellations, geometric shapes, flashes of worlds Marcus had never seen. At night, his dreams were not his own. He saw through their eyes. Endless skies, fractured memories of flight, and a vast web of light connecting every star like veins in a cosmic body. The forest began to change too. Plants glowed faintly, bending toward the crater's center. The wildlife avoided the area entirely. Marcus realized the energy from the wreck had not vanished, it had merged with the planet itself. His instruments showed rising energy signatures, not from radiation, but from something deeper, quantum resonance, alive and rhythmic. The heartstream, Seraphim had called it. One night, as he adjusted his damaged rifle, he heard movement beyond the perimeter. His sensors flared. Shapes moved between the trees, metallic, silent, scanning beams slicing the dark. He froze, shielding the hatchlings. The air shimmered faintly as one of the figures stepped into the clearing, tall, insectal, wearing armor that seemed to grow from its skin. Its head split open in 3 directions, revealing a glowing core. Biological signature confirmed, it said in a voice like broken glass. Draconis lineage detected. Human contamination, unacceptable. The hatchlings hissed, their wings flaring with light. Marcus raised his rifle, though deep down he knew bullets meant nothing now. The creature tilted its head, analyzing him. Then, as if sensing the impossible bond running through him, it recoiled slightly. Heartstream anomaly, it whispered. The rhythm lives. Before Marcus could react, the forest erupted with light. The hatchling screamed. A single, unified note, and the ground trembled as trees bent away from them. The alien figure staggered, its armor cracking, its body torn apart by invisible force. The light subsided as suddenly as it came. The hatchlings crouched beside Marcus, trembling. He looked down at his hand, it glowed faintly, veins pulsing with golden light. The energy was not just inside them anymore. It was inside him too. And somewhere in the distance, far beyond Thalen Ridge, something vast and ancient had just awakened in response. The remains of the intruder still smoked where it had fallen. Its armor had liquefied into pools of quicksilver, and from the cracks in its chest seeped fragments of something like code, symbols shifting and fading before the air swallowed them. Marcus stared, breath uneven. The hatchlings crouched close, their luminous eyes darting toward the trees, where faint echoes of metallic wings stirred the air. There were more coming. He gathered what he could from the wreck, a working scanner, fragments of Seraphim's organic ship that still pulsed faintly with data. The fragments resonated when he approached, whispering pulses into his cybernetic arm. He linked the scanner to his wrist display, and alien text streamed across the screen. It translated slowly, collective of the rift, retrieval protocol active, the words chilled him. They weren't here by chance. They were tracking the hatchlings. He dug into his pack, pulling out the last of his combat stims and a beacon transmitter. He could send a distress signal, but the colony would never reach him in time, and the dragons couldn't be taken to a human base. The link between them made that impossible. If the heartstream was truly real, then human science couldn't even begin to measure what bound them together. The ground vibrated, softly at first, then stronger, like the heartbeat of something buried beneath the soil. The hatchlings rose, wings unfolding. Marcus felt it too, a pressure behind his eyes, rhythmic and immense. The air shimmered, and the trees bent away from the clearing. Through the haze, 3 figures emerged, walking on limbs too thin to support their height. Their armor moved like liquid shadow, reflecting nothing. Human vessel identified, one said, its voice resonating directly in his skull. Surrender the spawn of Draconis. You are infected. Marcus aimed his rifle though he knew it was futile. They're under my protection. Protection, the creature hissed. You are part of them now. That makes you expendable. The hatchling screamed, not in fear, but in fury. Energy rippled through the ground, visible like heat waves. Marcus felt it racing through his veins, converging at his chest where the faint mark glowed. His pulse matched theirs. The attackers raised their weapons, and the forest exploded in a storm of light. The blast never reached him. Time seemed to fracture, the world slowing into impossible clarity. He moved through it as if guided by an unseen current, firing his weapon, dodging energy bolts before they formed. The hatchlings' eyes blazed, their wings releasing arcs of living plasma that shredded the invaders to ash. When it was over, the silence returned. Marcus knelt, trembling, his breath echoing in his head. The hatchlings pressed close, and a thought, gentle yet vast, filled his mind. You are one of us now. He looked up at the horizon, where distant flashes lit the sky like a storm of stars. The collective had found them. The war he thought he'd left behind was about to begin again, but this time, he wasn't fighting for humanity alone. He was fighting for the pulse that connected worlds. The following days blurred into one long rhythm of movement and silence. Marcus no longer slept in the way humans did, his dreams had merged with something larger. When the hatchlings rested, their breathing drew him into visions that were not memories but transmissions. He saw fragments of Seraphon's people, cities floating in violet nebulae, living ships that sang as they flew, an empire bound together by a single pulse. Then the silence, an ancient cataclysm that tore that rhythm apart. The heartstream fractured, scattered through space like shards of a shattered soul. He woke gasping, his chest glowing with faint light that pulsed in perfect time with the hatchlings. They grew faster than he could comprehend. Their wings now stretched wider than his cabin, their scales hardened to silver-white plates threaded with veins of light. They spoke less with sound and more with thought, their voices echoing in his mind with serene clarity. We remember you, one said during the storm that followed the second night. You were there when the fire ended. You carried us through the void. Marcus didn't understand, yet a part of him did. It was as though their memories were rewriting his own. His instruments detected more disturbances in orbit. Ripples in gravity, not from ships, but from rifts tearing open above Thalen Ridge. The collective wasn't sending scouts anymore. They were deploying full harvest fleets. Their goal wasn't just to reclaim the hatchlings, it was to capture the heartstream itself, to control the power that could bridge every conscious life across the galaxy. Marcus prepared defenses with what he had left, salvaged plating, a network of automated turrets running on hybrid biocircuits scavenged from Seraphon's remains. When he touched the living metal, it pulsed in response, recognizing him. He realized he no longer needed tools to interface, the connection itself was enough. His mind could command systems that once required code. The line between man and machine, between thought and signal, had dissolved. The first wave struck at dusk. The sky split in arcs of pale energy as drop pods rained down, bursting open to release swarms of mechanical drones. Marcus stood in the clearing, weapon humming, the hatchlings circling overhead. His heartbeat quickened, and so did theirs. Energy gathered in the air, visible as threads of golden light winding between them. When the first drone fired, the world erupted. The blast should have vaporized him, but instead, the light absorbed it, folded it inward and unleashed it back 100-fold. A wall of soundless force swept across the valley, obliterating the invaders. The hatchlings hovered above him, wings unfurled, eyes glowing with something ancient and sorrowful. Marcus felt their power coursing through him, not as borrowed strength but as union. The aftermath left the forest still and trembling. The stars above shimmered, bending slightly, as if watching. He dropped to one knee, the energy within him flickering like a fading signal. The hatchlings landed beside him, pressing their foreheads against his chest. Their thoughts whispered as one. The heartstream stirs, Marcus. The rift is not only coming for us. It is coming for everything. He looked up at the horizon where the rifts now glowed like wounds in the night sky. Somewhere beyond them, something vast was awakening, and it was calling his name through every beat of the universe. The night sky above Thalen Ridge fractured open like glass under pressure. Veins of light tore through the darkness, spilling radiance across the valley as the rifts widened. Marcus stood at the ridge's edge, his body alive with the hum of the heartstream. The hatchlings hovered nearby, their wings cutting through the electric air. Every beat of his heart now resonated with theirs, a rhythm that pulsed not just through their bodies but through the world itself. He could feel the collective's approach, thousands of ships, forming a living storm beyond the clouds. The first wave descended in silence. Ships of obsidian metal and liquid geometry encircled the valley, their forms shifting between machine and organism. Marcus reached into the pulse that bound him to the dragons and felt their power rise within him, burning bright as a star's core. Energy lines formed between them, visible strands of gold that flickered with memory and intent. He lifted his hand, and the ground responded. The forest shimmered, trees bending, roots coiling upward like circuits awakening after centuries of sleep. A voice, ancient and synthetic, filled the air. Human vessel designated Heartbearer. You are the final link. The heart stream belongs to the rift. Marcus's mind was suddenly flooded with images, civilizations consumed, stars drained, consciousness harvested. He saw the truth, the collective had been born from the remnants of the Dracones, their corrupted fragments fused into a machine hive that had forgotten its origin. They were not conquerors. They were the broken echo of what Seraphon's people once were. He looked at the hatchlings, now circling high above, their scales burning like twin suns. Then let's remind them what they lost. The battle that followed was not fought with weapons. It was rhythm against rhythm, thought against thought. The heart stream unfolded like a galaxy reborn. Light spread from Marcus's chest, connecting every living thing in the valley. The collective ships disintegrated under the pulse, their dark hulls unraveling into streams of data that rejoined the flow. The rifts screamed as they collapsed, folding inward until only silence remained. When the light faded, Marcus stood in the clearing alone. The hatchlings rested beside him, smaller now, their glow dim but peaceful. He felt his body unraveling, not dying, but merging. His mind expanded beyond its boundaries, joining the pulse that stretched through stars and time. He was no longer just Marcus Hale, soldier or savior. He was part of the current Seraphon had spoken of, the bridge between what was and what would be. As his form dissolved into light, the hatchlings lifted their heads, releasing a soft cry that echoed through the heavens. Above Thalen Ridge, the auroras burned brighter than ever, a single heartbeat rippling through the cosmos. And from that day forward, travelers who passed near the ridge spoke of a sound beneath the wind, a faint, steady pulse that matched their own, whispering that somewhere in the vastness of the stars, humanity had joined the song of dragons.